Okay, at long last, we're ready to start putting a finish in this guitar. I have sanded the entire body and the neck down to 220 and gone over everything with a fine-tooth comb and fixed any little, nicks or anything I might have had, sanded them out. Now, there's lots of different ways to finish guitars. The way I'm going to show you is with French polish. French polish is a shellac-based finish, which is certainly the oldest guitar finish around and used for hundreds of years, and has lots of advantages and a few disadvantages. One, it's very non-toxic. Just about everything you use with French polish you could eat in small quantities. That's why you would want to, I don't know. As opposed to things like nitrocellulose lacquer and stuff, which is very highly toxic and not good for you, will rot your brain. With a little practice, it's a fairly easy finish to apply. One of the advantages I love about it is you don't need a dust-free environment. Just about any finish that you're going to use with this, that you're going to spray on, like lacquer or even the water-based spray finishes, you have to have a nice, clean environment with no dust. Or a spray booth or something like that. Well, if you are like me, you have a little wee shop, that one-room type thing, very difficult to get rid of dust. But French polish doesn't matter. It dries instantly as you're putting it on, and dust particles don't stick to it. And it gives a beautiful, beautiful looking rich finish, probably the best one out there. Yet the finish itself is very thin and doesn't affect the sound quality of the guitar in any adverse ways. So, disadvantages. It does take longer to harden than other finishes do. Even for a period of months after you finish the guitar, it'll still be subject to scratches and stuff like that. So you have to kind of treat it with care for the first little bit. So there you go, that's my spiel on French polishing. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that. Now, shellac comes in flakes, which I've mail ordered these from Lee Valley actually. And you need to dissolve that in alcohol. Now I just use methyl hydrate from my hardware store, which is methyl alcohol. Ethyl alcohol works great if you can get it. Good luck. And what you do is you got to create the right, what they call a concentration of alcohol or shellac in alcohol. And I use what is called a 2-pound cut, which essentially is 2 pounds of shellac flakes in a gallon of alcohol. Now I don't need a gallon of French polish made up of shellac. So I have a jar, and I've marked on here the 4-ounce line. And what I do is I take 4 ounces of my alcohol with the appropriate amount of shellac that would be the same proportion as 2 pounds of shellac flakes to a gallon of alcohol, and I mix it up in there, and that'll do a whole guitar. So that's about all you need to mix up. You do the math as to how many ounces of shellac flakes that is. Now, for the first few coats on the guitar, we're just going to put some sealing coats on, and we actually don't want the full 2-pound cut. We only want a 1-pound cut. We want half of that. So I mix up a little bit of that cut, with an equal amount of alcohol to dilute it down to the 1-pound cut to use for the sealing coats. Now I've got a little bit of my 1-pound cut here or so on the rag, and I'm going around the binding first. I'm just taking a few squirts of things here, trying to get equal parts of alcohol and shellac onto my rag, because you kind of want to seal the binding from the coloration of a darker wood, because you can sometimes get color bleeding on there. Get a little bit on that binding first. And I'll go ahead and just put it on the rest of the back. You'll see as you're doing this that some of the color will come off from the wood onto your rag, which is fine. That's just little bits of sawdust or whatever. And we're going to do several coats of this sealer. And you'll see as we go on to the subsequent coats, you get less and less coloration coming off onto the rag. And when the coloration starts coming off altogether, or stops coming off altogether, you know you've got it sealed enough to continue on to the next phases. Now, another way to do this is with a brush. I have an artist brush here that I use. Put this on sometimes, which works okay too. Puts it on a little thicker, but that's okay for these early coats. Color doesn't seem to be bleeding too bad. Rosewood's really bad for bleeding color. This walnut doesn't seem to be quite as bad. Now, I have put 3 coats of 3 spit coats, what they call, of the shellac on there, just wiping it out with the rag. So to the point where the color wasn't coming off onto the rag anymore. And so that tells you that you've got the wood pretty well sealed. And you've got a good base of shellac on that material. Now, I've got walnut here, which is quite porous. Pretty large open pores in it, just like rosewood would be. And those have to be filled. So that's the next thing we're going to do, is fill those pores. Now, what I've done here is I've taken my piece of t-shirt, and this is just some surgical gauze you can pick up at the drugstore. I buy there's little like 3x3 inch squares of gauze. This I roll up into a ball, which just helps, act as a absorber of the liquid. I just wrap it in a piece of t-shirt like that, and it gives me this little pad with the size of a dollar coin. And I also have pumice, ground pumice. This is 2F, which is medium. You can get 4F, which is fine as well. Either one works okay. And what I do is I just sprinkle a little bit. It's just a white powder. Sprinkle a little bit on some paper. So I've got some out there. And we're not going to need any shellac here, because we already have enough shellac on the guitar for this purpose. And I take just straight alcohol and get my pad wet. Just dab it in the pumice and kind of rub it on my finger there a bit. And then we just work in a circular motion. You don't need a ton of pressure, but it's going to dissolve the shellac that's on there to a certain extent. And the pumice is a abrasive, so it makes kind of a slurry which gets pushed down into the pores. And you just work at an area for a little bit and then move on to another area, making special attention to the edges of the guitar. You don't want to miss those. And you work away at this until your pores all get filled up. You can hear it's not scratchy anymore, at least I can. So telling you that, I kind of worked in the pumice I had on there and trying to get some more.